I want to thank everyone for taking the time to come tonight. We've got a couple of things going on tonight. First off, we've got a presentation that our district attorney and our sheriff are going to help present on vaping. And then after the presentation, I've got just some information I want to share, and then we'll open some things for some questions. I would like to say that I know that there's some information out that there's going to be about senior tax exemption. It's not. I would like to say one thing about that is the fact that just as the sheriff cannot put a speed limit on a road or decide where red lights go, he can only enforce the law. I cannot do anything about any tax exemptions. I don't have the authority to do anything with tax exemptions or say anything about tax codes. That's our legislature, but I will share some things about our budget and stuff with you in a little bit. But right at the moment, we've got an issue going on with vaping, and it's extremely serious. We had 3 presentations today. We had 2 here at the high school and 1 at the junior high. And I'm so thankful. I want to introduce 2 of my good friends, Miss Alison Sosebee, our district attorney, and our sheriff, Donnie Craig. And we've got a presentation for you that we would like to share with you. It's a 2-fold presentation. One is an education about vaping. And I think it's going to surprise a lot of you with some of the information. And then also the consequences for our students, your children that are caught vaping, and what's going to happen from that standpoint. So at this time, Ms. Sosebee.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wilson. How are you guys doing tonight? Well, I am thrilled to death to be here, and I am so happy that you guys have came out for the superintendent's meeting tonight. I'll tell you, over the last couple of weeks, our area has been inundated with medical issues arising out of youth vaping. A couple of weeks ago, I was sitting in my office on a Friday afternoon, and I get a telephone call, and it was coming out of Gilmer County. And they said, Allison, we just want to let you know about something that had happened at school today, and we need to talk about how we should address this collectively between the school and law enforcement and the court system. And I said, okay, what happened? And so the person begins to inform me that there was a boy at the high school that was caught vaping in the bathroom. And as a result of what it was that he had vaped, he fell out. And when he started to come to, was so disoriented by the substance that he had ingested, was attempting to rip his tongue out of his mouth, as it was stated. And so that was on a Friday. I come to work then on the following Monday, and on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, over a total of that 4-day week, there are 9 additional students that have had medical emergencies collectively in Fannin, Gilmer, and Pickens counties as a result of vaping incidents at school. And when I say medical emergencies, this is actually requiring EMS to be called. Some of them are being transported to the hospital for treatment. And it has caused a lot of concern, of course, in the school systems through law enforcement, and in my capacity as district attorney in the Appalachian Judicial Circuit. I want to applaud Dr. Wilson. I want to applaud Sheriff Craig for working so well collectively and with my office in terms of trying to address this issue. So I don't know if you guys read this in the paper a couple of weeks ago, but Friday before last, I was doing a presentation with Special Agent Dustin Hamby with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. And we were giving a school presentation in a different county. And during the time that that was going on, and it was coordinated this way, there were 3 search warrants that were executed simultaneously in Fannin, Gilmer, and in Pickens counties. They were executed on the A1 Smoke Shop here in Jasper. They were executed on the A1 Smoke Shop in East Ellijay, and it was executed at the Citgo station on Blue Ridge Drive in Fannin County, Georgia. And the reason that those search warrants were being executed simultaneously was to ensure that no evidence was being destroyed. That was done in collaboration with the sheriff's offices in each one of the counties. It was done in collaboration with the district attorney's office and the drug task force. We had received information in the course of that investigation that this was a source of supply for what our students and our youth were vaping in our schools that was causing these medical emergencies. What is extremely concerning about the situation is you have a detective here in Pickens County, and when you go in to execute a search warrant, one of the things that happens is, of course, law enforcement collects the evidence. Law enforcement logs and inventories it. A detective goes in, there's a canister in the back. He opens the canister in order to photograph what is contained inside, and a few of the particles that are in that canister wafted up, and he inadvertently ingests them. I actually called him that Friday night to see how he was doing, and he says to me, "Allison," he said, "as soon as it hit me, I threw my breakfast across the room." He said, "I had to be helped out." He had 2 officers that helped him out, and then he had 2 EMS that came to treat him and took him to the hospital because of the unknown substance that had gotten into his body. A little while later, the 2 officers that had helped him out started exhibiting symptoms because they had came into contact with the detective. The 2 EMS providers who had treated the detective also started exhibiting symptoms, and they all had to be treated medically, all on that small dose of whatever unknown substance it was that they ingested. So we sent it to the crime lab. We have the results back from the crime lab. What has been tested and confirmed is we have, he had came into contact with Panaka. Now, that may not mean a lot to you, but how it translates is that is actually a Schedule I controlled substance. It's a synthetic cannabinoid. It is also the same substance that had been located in the vapes on a lot of the students at these schools that were having these medical emergencies. You know, the sheriff and the superintendent and I have talked at length about this today, and I think one of the most scary parts about all of this is when you walk into a store, you see something sitting on a counter, you see something on a glass shelf, and they sell it to you. You assume it's legal for you to possess it. It doesn't come with any disclaimers. It doesn't come with any notations. This is a Schedule I controlled substance. To possess it is a felony. You know, one of the big concerns about the vaping industry as a whole is that it is almost completely unregulated without any governmental oversight. As such, we don't know what's in the vape juice, what's in the pods. This is a photograph that was actually sent to me by a principal in a school in this circuit. That is a photograph of all of the vapes that were confiscated on one day. That is not a stock photo. Now, I don't know if any of you are really familiar with vapes or Juuls or any of those devices, but one of the things you may want to look at is a lot of these look like flash drives. That one looks like a mouse. These aren't the big clunky devices that you're used to seeing. They are hidden to appear as if there's something else. So when I was getting ready for this presentation originally, and this was probably when I started going through to the schools, about a week and a half ago, I had pulled headlines from what was going on a national level. Because when all of this hit North Georgia hard here, this was also hitting on a nationwide basis. FDA has declared that youth vaping is actually an epidemic. One of the things that happened about a week and a half ago is the FDA decided that they were going to go after Juul. Now, Juul is a manufacturer of one of these types of vaping devices, and basically it's just a brand along with several others. But Juul in particular has marketed itself to the youth. FDA tells Juul, you are going to find a way to keep these out of the hands of our young people, or we're going to come after you, and we are going to try to shut you down. So this isn't just an issue that we're dealing here regionally. or on a statewide basis, but as the nation as a whole. So one of the things that we have tried to impress upon the students today when we've been talking about them, if you run into a situation where somebody is asking you to vape, that you'll be cool, you'll fit in, to stop and think about the consequences of what you're doing before that happens. So one of the things that we deal with a lot in terms of law enforcement are drug offenses. And I would venture to say, if not directly, then indirectly, probably 85% of the cases that come through my office are related to drugs in one fashion or another. It may be possession, it may be distribution, it may be trafficking. It can also be theft, that somebody is stealing something, breaking into a home to get items so they can go sell it to the dope man to get dope. It could be domestic violence cases where someone is intoxicated or they get high and they commit an act of family violence and hurt or kill someone. It could be someone getting intoxicated, getting into a car, driving down the road and hurting or killing someone. So the drug issue in terms of our youth is very, very prevalent. And in terms of what we deal with in Georgia, there are 5 schedules for controlled substances. Number 1, Schedule 1 drugs are your worst. They have no recognized medicinal value and they have the most highly addictive qualities. Your Schedule 5s are going to be still having addictive qualities. They still are a controlled substance, but it decreases as you go down. So to give you an example, everyone in here I'm sure has heard of methamphetamine. Methamphetamine is very, very bad for you. Do not do methamphetamine. Methamphetamine is a Schedule 2 controlled substance. Another example would be Xanax, for example, or alprazolam. That would be a Schedule 4 controlled substance. It goes down as you go further down the scales. In terms of what we're dealing with, as I said, we're dealing with the synthetic cannabinoid Panaca. That is a Schedule 1. That is on the same level as heroin. It is on the same level as LSD. It is actually a higher schedule than methamphetamine. And that is what we are getting out of the vapes from the kids in our school systems here in Fannin, Gilmer, and Pickens counties. So one of the points that we have attempted to drive home in our presentations in terms of the schools today is the dangers of synthetic marijuana. Now I keep saying synthetic cannabinoid. Synthetic is essentially man-made. Cannabinoid is what we are finding that is being ingested as part of the vapes, but is carrying the same effects as what we have historically seen in synthetic marijuana. You could. And so what you're seeing here is there are multi and varied reactions that students are having at the schools. What we are attempting to do is trying to prevent that from occurring again and further prevent this leading into a lifelong addiction issue.
Just turning people like these into zombies. It's synthetic marijuana. On the street it's called Spice, or K2, and it's showing up in neighborhoods across the nation. The drug is so strong, people go into a zonked out state. Sometimes it can even turn peaceful people into crazies. New York City Police Commissioner Bill Bratt.
These individuals, many of them, under the influence of this drug, totally crazy.
This man seems to be completely out of his mind as he crouches naked on the street.
The more that you smoke it, because of the chemicals that are in it, can really destroy the brain cells in your brain, and you're not coming back from that.
YouTube is loaded with video of young people freaking out after allegedly taking synthetic marijuana, and people from all walks of life fall victim. In 2012, a 911 call was placed from Demi Moore's Hollywood home. The movie star had collapsed, and there were reports synthetic marijuana was to blame.
What does she take? Do you smoke something that's not marijuana that's similar to incense?
The drug is cheap. A single bag can be as little as $1.
So we've stopped at a couple of, several shops here in Manhattan and asked about K2 or Spice. One shop owner told us that they are no longer permitted to sell. K2 or Spice, but that they were selling it not that long ago. So they are cracking down here in Manhattan, but it is still available.
66-year-old Peter Varduniotis got the shock of his life when he was watching a local WCBS News broadcast and recognized his own son as one of the Walking Dead.
He looked like he was a zombie.
This was his son Peter Jr. just 2 years ago at a family wedding. Mom Margaret says synthetic pot has torn apart her family.
This is my son, Peter, the one I raised, the one I know, not the one I saw on TV.
Hopefully their son will get the help he so urgently needs, along with these other poor souls of the real-life Walking Dead.
And while K2 is not illegal in many places, there are efforts underway in a number of states to change that.
So I want to be clear in terms of the things that we're seeing in terms of the school system and law enforcement is kids who are vaping, this is not a good family, bad family issue. This is prevalent across the board. What is very, very concerning is you have students who have vape devices. You have to be at least 18 years old to possess a vape device or any vape product. We are getting these not only out of our high school, we are getting these out of our middle schools as well. When you have a student or a young person, and they are vaping something and they don't know what it is that they're vaping, and have a medical emergency, that is tremendously dangerous because then the treatment providers have no idea what to treat them for. It's concerning for the students who are distributing it, also the people who are taking it. And one of the stories that I shared with the student body today was a case that occurred here actually in Pickens County a couple of years ago. You had two boys and they started off really as lifelong friends from kindergarten all the way through high school. When they got to high school, they started partying and frankly started partying too much. And by the time they were in their early 20s, they were full-blown addicts. They reached a point where they said, you know what, we got to stop doing this. We got to grow up, we got to clean up, we got to do better, we're going to end up killing ourselves. So they decide that they're going to go into a rehabilitation facility, and they're scheduled actually to go in the very next day together. One of them decides they should have one last great grand hurrah before they go in, so he goes down to another county and he goes to his dope man and he gets some pills and he thinks that he is buying oxycodone. He comes back, he takes a pill, he gives a pill to his buddy. His buddy gets in a car, starts driving down the road. He overdoses and he dies. Law enforcement almost immediately tracks back what occurred and who distributed the pill to him. Law enforcement brings him in and they're conducting an interview with him, and he's sitting in the interview room, and I've seen the video and it is utterly heartbreaking. Because he is sitting there sobbing and crying, and he is not crying over the fact that he is worried about going to prison. He is crying, and in between his sobs, what you hear him say is, "I have just killed my best friend." So what happened ultimately was he did not distribute oxycodone to his best friend. He had distributed almost pure fentanyl to his best friend, which caused the overdose. So in terms of that situation, this gentleman, the defendant, had actually obtained those pills from the dope man. When he had obtained them from the dope man, those were not legitimate, even though they had a logo imprint on them. Someone had a pill press and made their own mixtures. And if you're sitting here wondering why I'm bringing this up in the context of this vaping presentation, it's because what we are noticing and what we are discovering is these vape shops, and even students after they obtain the vapes, are altering the vape juice. They are putting in additional substances. The vape providers, the shops, are making home brews. And that is very clearly a problem for everyone involved, including the student who is possessing it, because even though they may be possessing a Schedule I controlled substance, even though they may be possessing something that is going to cause that adverse reaction, in all reality, they might not actually even know it. So, in talking to students and administrators and law enforcement and trying to come up with the reasons as to why students may vape or why this may be an issue, one of the reasons they say is, oh, it makes me feel relaxed. Well, that's actually a false statement, depending on what it is that they're vaping. If it's nicotine, nicotine is an addiction-based substance. So once they ingest more nicotine, that's what gives them the relaxed feeling. And it would be different for any substance that would be contained in that, but we're not simply talking about the ingestion of flavored water. My friends vape, so I should too. I think almost everybody in the room can appreciate that you could probably count your true friends on one hand and wouldn't need all 5 fingers to do it. But your true friends wouldn't ever ask you to do something that is going to harm you. So the next time someone asks a student to vape, the equivalent of that should also be them asking you to drink a glass of Clorox. One other issue that has came up in vaping is an exceedingly new industry. So there isn't research. I mean, we all know nobody's going to sit here in this room and tell you that smoking is actually good for you. We know there are decades of research for that. But what we don't have are the decades of research for vaping. You know, I tell the students, and frankly, I'm of the humble opinion that they are a great deal victims in this entire situation, because they have gotten caught in a campaign and an ad war between the vaping industry and big tobacco. Big tobacco has been villainized to the point that the vaping industry is trying to come in and they are trying to get their piece of the pie on that multi-billion-dollar a year industry, and that's why they're targeting our youth. But in terms of what little studies are out there, there is actually evidence that vaping, and I am not talking about vaping of a controlled substance, but just vaping in and of itself, actually can have medical issues.
Nicotine might not be the only health hazard tied to e-cigarettes. A group of Harvard scientists recently released a study indicating a flavoring chemical found in e-cigarettes can cause a pretty gross lung disease. Its formal name is bronchiolitis obliterans. Its nickname is popcorn lung. It's an irreversible respiratory condition that causes the tiny air sacs in the lungs to become scarred. It was discovered in 2000 after employees at a Missouri factory inhaled butter flavoring for microwave popcorn on a daily basis. Workers developed several symptoms, including wheezing, coughing, and shortness of breath. Experts later learned the butter flavor contained a chemical called diacetyl. That chemical and 2 other harmful compounds were found in 75% of the e-cigarette flavored liquids studied in this project. Scientists tested 51 types of flavored e-cigs and liquids by placing each into a sealed chamber attached to a device that drew air through the e-cig for 8 seconds at a time, with a resting period of 15 or 30 seconds between each drop. After that, the airstream was analyzed. Since many states still sell e-cigs to minors, researchers purposefully tested flavors with the potential appeal to young people, such as cotton candy, fruit squirts, and cupcake. 47 of the 51 flavors tested contained at least one of the potentially harmful chemicals. For Newsy, I'm Katie Link.
So in the midst of working with the school systems, in discussions that administrators have been having with students, there was an administrator in another school that went to one of the students and said, what's it going to take for you guys to actually understand the dangers of this and to take this seriously? The student looked at the administrator and said, I don't know, for somebody to die? The administrator said, okay, well, what if that one person is you? What if you are the sacrificial lamb for everyone else to take this seriously? You know, one of the other reasons that continues to be popping up is it makes me look cool. that has been one of the big issues, and I want to applaud the Sheriff's Office and the school system for the approach that they are taking to this, because I think there has been a tremendous amount of peer pressure for students to fit in doing that through vaping. And clearly this is a harmful activity, but one of the things that I realized, and frankly what I really didn't come to me until a couple of weeks ago when I started thinking this through, I think most of us in this room grew up being subjected to the advertising of big tobacco, right? I mean, it was there. It wasn't always in your face, but we know the Marlboro Man. We know that the pictures from the movies. It's what Clint Eastwood did. It's what all of the cool people did in all the movies. And the thing is now that we know big tobacco, we know tobacco products are bad for us, but this is what we grew up saying. And that one got me. And I will tell you, I realized how subtle the advertising in fact was, that is Captain Hook out of Peter Pan on a Disney movie that they are telling us that it is okay. And that's what our youth is getting inundated with now. Be cool, do it, and fit in. So one of the points that I try to drive home to the youth is this article was actually written not 10 or 15 years ago. It was written in November of 2017. And finally, a federal judge had all she could take out of the big tobacco lawsuits and finally made big tobacco step up and make admissions, including the fact that smoking kills 1,200 people a day. And in her opinion, she wrote, "In short, the defendants have marketed and sold their lethal product with zeal, with deception, and with a single-minded focus on their financial success and without regard for the human tragedy or social cost that success exacted." And that's what our youth is being faced with. You cannot go into a gas station and not see drug paraphernalia sitting on the countertop. That you will see the Juuls sitting there, that you will see the vape juices sitting there. And it's all marketed to the youth. It's all in colorful packages and it's all sitting right next to the candy. So, one other issue that I have heard in statements coming from the students is they like the way that it tastes. It tastes like cotton candy, and frankly, that's why it's marketed to them. You heard all of the flavors. But I point them back to one issue, one known medical issue we know at this point in time is popcorn lung. So, what happens if you are caught vaping? There is a plethora of different areas that this can hurt a student in, one of which is at the school. Dr. Wilson, would you talk to that?
We've been approaching vaping incorrectly over the last year or so. We've looked at it strictly as a form of tobacco and just a continuation of tobacco policies. Well, that stops today. I told all of our students today that as of today, we're declaring war on vaping. I also told the students today that I care so much about them that I'm going to do everything within my power as the Office of Superintendent to ensure their safety and well health. Meaning that if a student is caught vaping or with any vaping device or the vape, we're going to prosecute them to the extent of our student code of conduct allows us to. And if it's under 18, it's illegal for them to have. We're going to ask the sheriff to prosecute them criminally. And if a student allows another student to use a vape or to borrow the device, we're also going to charge them contributing to the delinquency of a minor. We're going to stop vaping. And we're going to do everything within our power to keep our kids safe. This is one of the most dangerous things I've seen in a long, long time. And it's hitting our kids. And they don't realize the extent of how dangerous it is. I know I still have parents buying this stuff for their children. And a lot of them think it's better to vape than it is to smoke cigarettes. And smoking's bad, we know that. It kills 1,200 people a day. Problem is they don't realize, because it is unregulated, the stuff that goes in it. We're going to do everything within our power to ensure the safety of all of our students. And so parents, you're going to have to help us on this, because if your child is caught vaping, we're going to prosecute them to the extent of the law that we possibly can. Because I'd rather do something like that now and save their life than, because it would absolutely kill me as superintendent knowing that I had a student die because of this and I didn't do everything within my power to stop it. We're going to do that from the school system's perspective, but then we're going to ask the sheriff to prosecute on a criminal. Sheriff?
Thank you, Dr. Wilson and Alison Sosebee, for having this meeting tonight and willing to present this information, not only to you guys, but I think more importantly to the students. You know, we met here at the high school today with 2 different sessions. We went over to the junior high school, we met with them, and the same presentation that you guys are hearing tonight is the same presentation that we made to the students. And I told them in that presentation that while, you know, the last thing I want to see as sheriff is that our children graduate from high school with a criminal history. I can remember several years ago, if 2 kids got in a fight, there's no question about it, they went to jail. I don't necessarily believe in that, because I think as students, as our young people are growing up, we, and I say we because I was one of them, probably didn't make the best decisions. But I think we're at a point in time where we have to take a very hard stance on the things that we're seeing when it comes to vaping. Over the last several months, our office, along with the school and with the DA's office, has dealt with nearly 24 students that have come to school after vaping or vaped at school, and ended up, not all of them was transported to the hospital, but it's serious, and especially when we have one of our own deputies ingest just a small bit of it during the search warrant, ended up in the hospital, passed out. Guys, this is serious. As Alison mentioned earlier, I think one of the issues is they think that they can go down to the local sicko station or wherever it is they're buying it, or the smoke shops, and they think, well, if I can buy this over the counter, it's got to be okay. Guys, that's not the case. I'm very thankful for our drug task force and the work that they've done with the A1 smoke shop and getting that stopped. But there's still a lot of work to do. There's still other products out there that are harmful to our kids, and we're working very closely with, again, these guys and our drug task force, and hopefully we'll put a stop to that as well. But what I told the students today is, if they're caught vaping at school, if they're passing their vape off to somebody else to vape at school, or anywhere, not just at school, but we're really focusing on the school because that's where we're seeing most of it, is that they would be charged with the appropriate crime, whether it be vaping, underage, and again, a lot of the students that had issues with the vaping, when we send the stuff off to the crime lab down at GBI, it's coming back as a Schedule I substance, which is a felony. The last thing our students need is a felony on the record when they graduate. So, as Dr. Wilson said, we need the help from the community. We need the help from the parents. It's not okay, guys. It's not. I know a lot of the parents grew up smoking at a young age. There's a big difference in the cigarettes and the nicotine versus what we're seeing with these vapes, because we don't know what's in it. And when we're sending off the lab, again, we come back with Schedule I narcotics, which is worse than methamphetamine. I mean, how many of these kids would be passing methamphetamine off to their buddies at school? It just wouldn't happen because of some of the commercials and the things that we're seeing out here, being able to just buy it over the counter. They think, it's no big deal. Guys, it is a big deal. Let's not have something worse happen before it gets our attention. I think we're very fortunate in this community. We have a district attorney and a school superintendent willing to work so hard to get this information out. As soon as we started seeing it, we met immediately and started trying to figure out what we can do. We brought in the Drug Task Force, we brought in the GBI. Allison has been able to contact the crime lab down in Atlanta. Normally it takes us nearly 12 months to get a result back on a drug that we send to the lab for testing. We got this back, 2 days, following day. And the crime lab has been tremendous in helping us get these results turned around in just a day or two. And again, I mean, we got to have your guys' help. But we have told the students today what the recourse would be if they're caught. My daughter, she's 18 years old. She called me just a little while ago and said, "Dad, what have you been telling those kids at school?" I said, "What are you talking about?" And she's like, "Well, I've had friends send me messages and I've read stuff on Facebook that you're going to lock them up for 15 years if they get caught vaping." And so it's going all over social media. Well, the fact is, if they get caught, they will be arrested or be charged. If they're juvenile, of course, it's juvenile court. If they're 18 or above, they can be charged as an adult. They could be arrested and taken to the jail. And under the Schedule 1 is punished by up to 15 years. So, I mean, is that something that we really want our students to have to deal with? You know, I hope and pray that you guys will help us. And again, I thank Allison for the presentation and what she's doing working with us. And thank you guys for being with us tonight and willing to listen.
Can y'all give a round of applause to Sheriff Craig and Dr. Wilson? Thank you very much. I will tell you, going along with one of the things that Sheriff Craig had said, with the amount of time that we have to wait getting results back from the crime lab for what was happening in our area and our students having as many medical issues as they were having in such a short time period, the GBI viewed this as an epidemic in our area. And that's when they started giving us such a short turnaround time so we could identify these substances and what we were dealing with and know better how to deal with it in our school systems. One of the things that I think that is important for the students to understand is, although you have to be 18 years of age to possess a vape or a vaping device, on school grounds it's not permitted anyway. So even if you just have a vape with no controlled substance contained within it, you could still be subject to penalties within the school system. And one of the things that I want to truly applaud in terms of this collaborative effort in dealing with this issue is it doesn't just address the ramifications that are going to occur within the school. Coaches, sponsors for clubs, extracurricular activities are on board to follow in terms of the students receiving a punishment or ramifications if they're involved in those types of activities as well. But in talking about the penalties and what we deal with, and it depends on the age of the youth. Most people believe you have to be 18 years old to be charged as an adult. We deal and charge our youthful offenders at the age of 17 in Superior Court. So if you are under the age of 17 years, depending on the crime that you're being charged with, you're generally going to go to juvenile court. So what the process would be is the school addresses this issue. The school brings it to the attention of law enforcement. If law enforcement brings a charge, then the district attorney's office is responsible for prosecuting that case in juvenile court. And that could be anywhere from possession of vaping or vape products to them vaping. It could be all the way up to possession of a Schedule 1 controlled substance or any other controlled substance that they may have. And that will actually subject them to punishment in the juvenile court system, which could include fines, probation, community service, limiting on electronics, limiting on social media, and even potentially the youth detention center. Now, when we start talking about adult penalties, we are talking about things that are going to go on their permanent record. And this could potentially be based on one bad decision that they are making. But Sheriff Craig is spot on. Depending on the amount and the weight of a Schedule 1 controlled substance that you have on a first offense, state statute provides for 1 to 15 years in the state prison system and up to a $100,000 fine. This is a very serious issue in terms of what we're dealing with, and what is concerning to me is that our youth are getting a hold of this, that they are ingesting it. So I asked the students, what does their future hold? What are they looking for? After they graduate high school, are they going to go to college? Are they going to go to get a job? Are they going to go into the military? Because most any avenue that they pursue following high school graduation, these types of charges and these types of offenses will follow them. I have a very good friend who has fortunately made it into the upper echelons of law enforcement, and at one point they were looking at him for a promotion, and he had reached a level that it was going to be an extremely high security clearance. And so at that point in time, they go in and they do a background check on him. And it's not just a background check, it is a deep background check, and it also involves a polygraph. He made some very stupid decisions when he was younger, and it wasn't anything that he got caught for. It wasn't anything that he was arrested for. But when he gets hooked up to the polygraph, of course, he's having to admit that he did these certain things. Now, fortunately, it was able to work out well for him, but ultimately what it almost cost him was a very illustrious career in law enforcement. And it is not always necessarily an issue regarding consequences if it's just that the law catches you. The consequences, frankly, could be lifelong, even if you don't get caught by the school, even if you don't get caught by law enforcement, and it could even lead into addiction issues. You know, one of the things that I attempt to impress upon the students when I talk to them is one bad decision can affect your entire future. And as much as they would like to think that they're kids and it's not fair and that they should be given a pass, there are some things, I'm sorry, just won't fix. So a couple of years ago, we had a extremely tragic case that occurred in this circuit in a different county. And there was a boy that had gotten a brand new pickup truck. And he decided that he wanted to go drink. He decided that he wanted to get high. And then he makes the very bad decision to get into his car and to drive. Law enforcement sees him. They get behind him. They attempt to effectuate a traffic stop on him. And in his intoxicated logic, instead of pulling over, decides to gun it. What he didn't see was the family loaded in the minivan that was parked at the red light that he ran his truck over. You have one child that is killed. You have another child that will be paralyzed for the rest of his life. You have a family that was devastated as a result of this tragedy. All because he made one bad decision. I could not stand here and tell you whether he was a good kid or a bad kid before that happened. But what I do know as a result of the decision that he made, then that family's life and his family's life will never ever be the same again. You have students that are vaping, you have youth that are vaping, they don't know what they're vaping. What is going to happen if they get behind the wheel of a car and start driving down the road? What I have tried to impress upon them regarding the ramifications is the next time that you want to go get a vape, the next time somebody hands you a vape, you want to look cool, you think it tastes good, you think that it makes you feel relaxed. You need to make a determination if it is worth the consequences that may potentially follow. So of the rules that I give them in every school speech that I go into the schools and do, I tell them if they follow 4 rules, I promise that they will never, ever, ever see me in a courtroom as a criminal defendant. I will also tell you the same thing, which will be, number 1, do not speed when you drive a car. Number 2, do not follow another car too closely. Number 3, do not text and drive. And number 4, and most importantly, don't be stupid. I promise, if you in a criminal defendant. The last thing that I really like to truly impress upon the students is to be smart, to make wise decisions, and to please not be a lab rat or a guinea pig for the vaping industry. In talking with the sheriff and with Dr. Wilson today, I also think that it's very important to note that we are having students and we are having youth that have came to authority figures that have tried to stop vaping. And they are in an addiction mindset. They are actually addicted to the substances that they have been vaping. That is occurring here locally. It's occurring now. I want to impress to all the parents, to the kids out there, anybody who may be watching at home, that if there is anyone who needs help, we will do everything within our power to provide that assistance to you. This is not about punishing you if you have an addiction as a result of vaping. It is about making you understand if we catch you doing it, there will be consequences that will follow. But anybody who needs assistance, please contact the superintendent's office, the school counselor, the sheriff's office, or the DA's office. And I want to thank all of you guys for your attention so much. You've been great.
Are there any questions either to the sheriff or to Ms. Allison? Yes, sir.
I have a question. Because of this is the reason I have to put my driver's license in to get us can some spray paint?
Yes,
Okay.
it is.
Dumb.
Yes. That's because somebody takes it and uses it very illegally, though. But yes. Yes, ma'am.
I see that vaping out like some donuts or Zaxby's. Do we report that, or should we just assume they're only?
Absolutely, if they are underage. If they appear to be under the age of 18, yes. Because from my perspective, I deal with it on school property, at school events, but working with the sheriff and our district attorney, they're going to deal with it everywhere in the county. So yes. Yes, sir.
Just because like chemicals is in like CBD and chronic, is it making any better than cigarette or cigar?
Any better?
Or any worse?
I think it makes it much worse, especially if you're using it in a vape. Yes, just the vaping process itself is worse than the burning process of nicotine. My understanding also is one little pod of nicotine equals an entire pack of cigarettes at one time. So yes, there are some other chemicals in there. If you know what's in every one of them, it's still worse. I think that what will occur is that there will be some, at some point, some government regulation over the production of it. And of course, then we get into the lawsuits just like we did with tobacco. Yes. Chronic is Schedule 1. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you'll go to jail for that, big time. Yes, sir.
Is there any pending legislation on restricted minors or students from buying vaping materials?
It already is. It's illegal for anyone under the age of 18 to possess, purchase, use. It's already illegal for anybody under the age of 18.
So do they check at convenience stores and gas stations?
Well, the ones that have been selling it to them and selling the illegal part of it, probably not. It's just like selling tobacco until, you know, and the sheriff does a great job of it, and so does our district attorneys. And when they start clamping down on those things like that, then it dries up and becomes harder for some of the underage kids to purchase it. The problem with vaping is also we have a lot of parents that think it's better than smoking and actually purchase vape and vape devices for their children. I've heard a couple of situations today even, that's occurring at home. Yes, ma'am.
Is either that slideshow available to the public, or is there a website where we can direct people that we know that are already vaping as adults and don't know the risks?
I have a feeling that probably the entire slideshow will be on No Pickens very shortly. So you can access that, but also Alison will make it available to us and we can get it to you. But it'll also be on No Pickens. And Veteran News. Yes, ma'am.
Have there ever been decoy operations involving?
I'm sorry.
Have there ever been a decoy operation involving teens that look under 18 trying to purchase?
At the places.
Convenience stores at the Citcos?
Yes. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Is this presentation been delivered to the two counties, to Gilmer and Bannon too?
It has. And will be delivered very shortly to Mountain Ed.
Are you in
Charter
middle
School.
schools?
I'm sorry?
Will you also be delivering to the middle schools in those two counties too?
Yes, the only school that has not been addressed circuit-wide at this point would be Gilmer Middle. All other schools have been addressed.
Yes. I think both of them are horrible, terrible, and both of them will kill you. So it would almost be like saying, would you rather be shot with a gun or stabbed with a knife? I think because both of them are deadly and both of them will kill you. Tobacco admitted November of 17, 1,200 people die every day from smoking. Problem is we don't know how many die from vaping. Yes, ma'am.
What precautions are being done in the school system? I know I've heard a lot of kids go into the bathroom and are doing this, since you can't monitor what's going on inside.
We can. We can and we will. Yes. You can have an adult male walk into a male bathroom. And an adult female going into a female bathroom. So yes, we can monitor it stronger than what we have been. We made it very, very clear to all the students today that as of today, that we're declaring war on vaping and we're going to do everything within our power, all three of our powers, to stop it. Yes, ma'am.
So do you have to inhale it, or can you absorb it through touching the oils or anything? Because that's the concern. If you have a child that doesn't do that, coming into contact with the oil itself, is that, do y'all have any info?
I would have to speak to a forensic toxicologist regarding that. My assumption would be is that it would be able to be absorbed. I do not think that you are going to immediately feel the effects as quickly as you would if you were vaping it directly into your lungs.
Right.
But again, I'll go back to last Friday when we executed the search warrant at the vape shop. You know, one of our detectives leans over, he inhales a little bit of the stuff coming up. He immediately gets sick, nearly passes out. The other two that's just assisting him to the hospital get sick. And then later, two of the EMTs that transported him got sick. So obviously they were not inhaling, they were not smoking, vaping. I mean, just being around it is what sent them to the hospital. They started experiencing, the EMTs, I think they started dizziness, tingling in their face and things like that. I mean, just from transporting and being around this guy. And I know our detective was there and, you know, was probably handling some of it in direct contact. But still, I mean, it's serious stuff. Yes, sir.
What, do you know anything about the secondhand effects of someone is vaping, if someone else in the area would breathe these secondhand fumes from a vape device? Because you said those people who assisted the officer felt the effects of the concentrated substance, the substance that would come out of a vaping device. If someone else breathed in that secondhand smoke, would they likely feel an effect of the...
My understanding is that we had a student at Mountain Ed Charter High School that also had problems and symptomatic by being somebody that was around secondhand smoke through him, and he had to have medical attention also. It is such a new epidemic to us that we don't know the extent of the damage that's done, and to the extent that people can be affected by it. And that's what's one of the most scary thing about it, is we know so little about how it, even what's in it, much less what's being shared and passed around. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am. Okay, I'll get to that in just a few minutes. Yes, sir.
Have you put this presentation on at the elementary school yet?
No, sir. We haven't. We're discussing that. Yeah. Yeah.
How many kids is in the school system here?
We got a little less than 4,500. 4,500.
Well, it looks like one parent is here from each family that's going to speak for.
It would. It would. When you first think about it, or somebody just out and that doesn't know a lot of this stuff, it's just like, well, having a meeting tonight on kids smoking tobacco. And it's not. It's extremely serious, but until they actually, I've been amazed at how much I've learned about the whole process just hearing Alison's presentation. Just on the tobacco part, the nicotine part.
Here too, if anybody would like to have this presentation brought to their business, their churches, their civic organizations, they'll contact my office, and I'll work with Alison and Carlton Wilson.
Absolutely. Because this is something that education's got to get out there. People have got to know. It's one thing to commit suicide by doing this if you know that you're doing it, but then not realizing what's in it and doing it is just another situation. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
So why can't adults, like, I don't know what my kids do at school, but my kids know what I'm going to do at home if they get something like that. What can we do as a community to help guide the kids that are doing this?
Some of it is the fact that if they are addicted to it, to absolutely let us know, and we'll do everything within our power to help overcome that addiction and get them help. The other thing is really education. They've got to understand the seriousness of it. My greatest fear is that we'll have a student that will do something like this and go to the hospital and not come back. Unfortunately, a lot of our students think that they're 10 foot tall and bulletproof, that this won't happen to them, that this can't happen to them or their friends. It happens to someone else until it happens to them. And that's the scary part, is we've got to make sure our students and your children know that it can happen to them. And that would be horrible. Yes, ma'am.
Is this going to be available to bus drivers and other people in the school system?
Absolutely, we can do that. Yeah. Yes. Because if you don't know what you're looking at, just like the devices, they look like flash drives, mouse, telephones. And it's designed to look that way from the companies that are producing it. Yes, ma'am.
Do we have currently in our community any addiction support groups for youth?
Other than drug court, addiction support groups for youth. I'm not positive on an actual group.
I want to say there is, but with Highland River, but I'd have to double check with them. But if it's not already existing, let's get it on the agenda. All right.
Good idea. Good suggestion. Absolutely. Any other questions? Yes. If it's somebody, especially if they're under the age of 18, I wouldn't be calling it snitching if you're trying to save their life. And they may not like you, they may hate you for a few days or a year, but once they realize that you have helped save their life, or let us know, and they don't have to know you told us. But if you really, really are friends with somebody, you won't let them kill themselves by doing this.
Didn't we used to have an anonymous tip line for the school?
No, we don't. We have the box, yes, and we can do some of that. There are some reasons for the tip line. It's not a tip line, it was actually a helpline, and that was to report some things. It was not manned 24 hours a day, and we didn't want a student, somebody call in that was on the verge of committing suicide thinking somebody's going to call right back. It could have been the next day or 2 days or over the weekend. So from that standpoint is the reason we don't have the tip line. But we will come up with some ways for students to help other students by letting us know. Yes, sir.
Is there a way to identify what the vape juice is? I mean, if you catch getting to know it's fruit flavor, nicotine, or something much worse?
No. No, and like Alison said, normally it's a 12-month process taking it to the crime lab, but because of the epidemic here and because of her influence, we got a 24-hour turnaround on the last batch that they sent down there. That's the scary part, and that's what's almost impossible. But we will, whatever we find, we will send it to the crime lab. And it could be 6 months, 8 months, 12 months from now and come back and charge that person with a Schedule I narcotic. Because we have, on felonies, we have up to 4 years to charge them once the crime has been committed. So, you know, if it takes that long to get it back and it's a Schedule I narcotic, we are going to charge them.
My kids were saying, I didn't know more about the ideal, unfortunately. They're saying it's in there because it's clear or different color.
If it's clear or brown, then you can like tell the apart.
What does that mean?
Like one of them, like they're normally like one color.
But you still know what it is.
There may be some things that are very similar to that, but there's a lot of other stuff that they can put in it that you never can tell what it is, color-wise or anything else. That's our scary part.
Once they put it in there, they're adding stuff to it, isn't that what you said?
Well, some of the people themselves that purchase it may be adding stuff to it, but the scary part is the Schedule I narcotic that came out of the vape shops. The owners of the vape shops were creating that Schedule I narcotic that students may or may not have known that's what they were purchasing. Yes, ma'am.
Now the stuff that the vape shop is selling, is that what they're referring to as the green mist?
The green mist.
Two of the main substances that have been identified by the crime lab have been the vape juices marketed as Blaze and Chronic. Now there are other substances that have been sent off and being tested, but that's the correlation in terms of what we're having right now with the Schedule I's.
Any other questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
That vape shop, did they find that they were selling to minors? I didn't even know.
Yes. Anything else? Yes, ma'am.
As a parent of a child at Pickens, I just want to say thank you so much to all of you. Spending your time to help us. Thank you.
Well, thank you, to start with, but this is also too important of a thing. It's concerning our kids and our students, and that's why we're here. Any other questions? please join me in giving our sheriff, our district attorney a round of applause. And thank you.